Happy Sabbath. We have already been so blessed this Sabbath. It is a special Sabbath indeed. And I want to appreciate our young people who have been playing so nicely. Thank you so much. I was looking at them. Some of them are no longer here. I wanted to ask them a question. Probably some of them might answer the question. It's a risky one. Kids, did anyone in your family keep telling you that you have to practice? Okay, now let's see the answer. Who did it the most, mom or dad? Say it louder. Mom. So you kind of understand where I'm going to, because behind any of these beautiful children, and Carrie, I'm sorry, you are no longer children, but I'm adding you to the list. Behind the performance and the achievement and all the hard work that these children have done to practice and play so well, I think there is a mother that stays there and say, hey, you have to practice, and the mother that went with them to take lessons and stayed there and spent time. And today I have changed the course, so we are still in the wilderness, but we are keeping our pace little by little. So we are not going to address one of the topics of the lessons from the wilderness. And by the way, if I'm thinking clearly, next, is this the first Sabbath? So we still have a Sabbath this month to deal with the wilderness, and then the first Sabbath of next month, it is going to be a camp meeting at Collegedale. So from time to time, we are going to take a break from our lessons from the wilderness. And today I want to dedicate our thoughts to the most precious beings in our lives, which are our mothers, but not only to our mothers, also to all the women, because in every woman's chest beats a mother's heart. In other words, every woman has that capacity of affection and compassion and empathy and dedication and self-sacrifice, as we know in our mothers. A mother's heart can save a child's life. But more than this, a mother's touch can revive or resurrect a child. Can you believe that? It happened in March 2010 in Australia. The parents just had the final chance to say goodbye to little Jamie, who was born and died at birth. The Og family had after 3 hours labor, hard labor, had two babies, two twins. And one of them couldn't survive. After 30 minutes of struggle, trying to resuscitate the baby, the doctors gave up and they declared the baby dead. There was nothing to be done. They were born at 27 weeks, weighing 2 pounds. Although little Jamie's twin sister, Emily, had been delivered successfully, doctors had given Mrs. Og the news all mothers dread. They had declared him dead. Having given him up on a miracle, Mrs. Ogg unwrapped the baby from his blanket and held him against her skin. They wanted to take the baby, the dead baby, from her arms, but she said, just a minute, just one more minute. And that one more minute had become 2 hours. After 2 hours of being hugged, touched, and spoken to by his mother, the little boy began showing signs of life after 2 hours. At first, it was just a gasp of air that was dismissed by the doctors. They said it's a reflex action. But then she took a little bit of breast milk, put it on her finger, and put it in his mouth. And he started breathing. And then he started breathing normally. I thought, oh my God, what's going on? Said Mrs. Ogg. A short time later, he opened his eyes. It was a miracle that he held out his hand and grabbed her finger. He opened his eyes and moved his head from side to side. The doctors kept shaking his head, saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. In an interview, the Australian mother spoke about this and described, he started gasping more and more regularly. I thought, oh my God, what's going on? In most cases, now there is an explanation for this. In most cases, babies are rushed off to intensive care and if there is a serious problem during the birth. But in poorer countries, there is something that they call the kangaroo care technique, because it's named after the way the kangaroos hold their young in a pouch next to their bodies. So the mother unwrapped the baby and with the naked skin hold the baby next to her skin. It was a miracle that brought back to life Jamie, who was declared dead at birth. I've read the article. You can Google it because I did it. It was published in 2010, and then they wrote another article in 2015. And the baby was completely healthy, exactly as the twin brother was, and no problems after that. A mother's heart, a mother's touch, can bring back to life not only dead babies, but they can bring back to life what is the best in everyone around, because of the way God has created women with a sensitive attitude, with an ability to have compassion and to inspire. When God created the woman, he had a purpose for that. He was very clear when he said it's not good for the man to live alone. He decided to create Eve in a way and a shape that would complete, and men and women are not complete without being together. They are complete only in this holy unity that God has designed. I like the little essay wrote by Irma Bambeck. I think you've heard it before, but you'll still like to hear it. It speaks about God creating mothers. She says that one day God created mothers. He had already worked long overtime. And an angel said to God, Lord, You sure are spending a lot of time on this one." The Lord turned and said, "Have you read the specs on this model? She is supposed to be completely washable, but not plastic. She is to have 180 moving parts, all of them replaceable. She is to have a kiss that will heal everything from a broken leg to a broken heart. She is to have a lap that will disappear whenever she stands up. She is to be able to function on black coffee and leftovers. She is supposed to have 6 pairs of hands." 6 pairs of hands, said the angel. "That's impossible." "Oh, it is not the 6 pairs of hands that bother me," said the Lord. It is the 3 pairs of eyes. She is supposed to have 1 pair that sees through closed doors, so that whenever she says, "What are you kids doing in there?" she already knows what they are doing in there. She has another pair in the back of her head to see all things she is not supposed to see, but must see. And then she has 1 pair right in front that can look at a child that just goofed and communicate love and understanding without saying a word. "That's too much," said the angel. "You can't put that much in 1 model. Why don't you rest for a while and resume your creation tomorrow?" "No, I can't," said the Lord. "I'm close to creating someone very much like myself. I have already come up with a model who can heal herself when she is sick, who can feed a family of 6 with 1 pound of food, who can persuade a 9-year-old to take a shower." Then the angel looked at the model of the motherhood a little more closely and said, "She is too soft." "Oh, but she is tough," said the Lord. "You'd be surprised how much this mother can do." "Can she think?" asked the angel. "Oh, not only can she think," said the Lord, "but she can reason and compromise and persuade." Then the angel reached over and touched her cheek. "This one has a leak," he said. "I told you that you couldn't put that much in 1 model." "That's not a leak," said the Lord. "That's a tear." "What's a tear for?" asked the angel. "Well, it's for joy, for sadness, for sorrow, for disappointment, for pride." "You're a genius," said the angel. And the Lord said, "Oh, but I didn't put it there." In the Bible, we have different representations of God's love. Jesus represents his love for us as a friend. He says, "You are my friends," and we know love through friendship. The Bible speaks about love when he speaks about the love between a husband and a wife, and even compares the husband and the wife with the church and Christ. Then the Bible speaks about love when it speaks about God as our Father, as Jesus himself taught us to call God as our Father. A brotherly love is also there. Christ is called our elderly brother. However, there is nothing more close related to what I perceive as God's love as the love of a mother. No matter what people do, sometimes fathers are tough and they say, "Well, I will disinherit you." Is this what you say? Disinherit you. Or I know sons that have left home because of their fathers. But I've never heard about kids or sons that have left home because of the mother. They may be in a sinful world, but I've never heard about that. Even if a child can make mistakes and get in a very bad situation, the mother will never stop loving the child, never stop embracing him or her, because her heart is special. The Bible honors and recognizes women in positions of power. One is Miriam, who led the people in praising God after crossing the sea, the Red Sea. But I'm also thinking before Miriam, I'm thinking about the mother, and I didn't write down the name, Jochebed, the mother of Moses, and Miriam. She gave Moses an education in only how many years? How many years did Moses stay with his mother? 12 years. And if in 12 years, she was able to impress his mind with the love for God that lasted, and much later at 40, he stood up for his God and faith when he stood up for his people. In only 12 years, and 28 years of a teenager and a young adult life in the middle of riches and pagan hidden education in Egypt. What was planted there by his mother in 12 years stood and brought fruit. And Miriam was the first leader of women's ministry. She got together or gathered together all the women in Israel, encouraged them, and helped them. What do you think the women in Israel felt when they went to the wilderness? You know, men are known to have a better ability to adjust to environment, especially when it comes to home and places. When we go to find a hotel, I'm fine with almost every room as long as it has a balcony, because I'm claustrophobic. But almost every time we replace 1 or 2 or 3 rooms until we settle in one. That's not true. Okay, last time we changed 2 rooms and we settled in the 3rd because you didn't like the smell in the room. So, am I right? No, you don't remember. Well, husbands, make sure that your home is very well arranged, and make sure that you listen to your wives when they tell you to fix the toilet, to fix the light, to change the AC air filters, and the list goes on, because it is very important to have a happy wife. Behind every happy man, there is a happy wife. So, dear man, the secret of survival the secret of happiness is to have a happy wife. I like what the Bible says in Proverbs, and no matter what words can people find, there are no better words than the Bible has. In Proverbs chapter 31, and I will read the entire passage from 10 to 31. I speak verses 10 to 31, not chapter 10 to 31. Proverbs 31 or 31st. An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and no harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night. She provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruits of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dressed herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives her merchandise and is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to this staff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed covering for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and she delivers sachets to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is of her tongue. She looks well in the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruits of her hands, and let her works praise in the gates. Behind every great man, it is a great woman, either a wife or a mother. So the list in the Bible goes on. We have Ruth that put God's first and became one of the ancestors of King David. We have Deborah, a judge in Israel. We have Esther, who took her life in her hands to plead for her doomed people. We have the widow that fed the prophet Elijah. We have the little captive maid who told Naaman's wife about the man of God that could cure his leprosy. We have the woman who anointed Jesus. We have the poor widow's gift of 2 mites that Jesus praised. We have Mary who gave birth to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We have Martha and Mary who sat at the feet of Jesus. We have Mary Magdalene who brought spices to anoint Jesus and was the first who saw Jesus risen. And then we have Lydia, a rich lady in Macedonia. We have Dorcas that sets up the basis for what we call now community service. We have Phoebe and Priscilla. We have Lois and Eunice, who were raising Timothy, a man of God in the apostolic church. We have Persis, we have Tryphena, we have Tryphosa, who labored for the Lord, Romans 16, verse 12. Women have not been appreciated. For centuries, they have been treated and considered inferior. Satan has tried to attack what God has settled and established such a wonderful creature. But Jesus came to restore the dignity. He was born of a woman. Sorry. I'm not sure if the water will help me, but I will make it. I was too excited speaking. Jesus has restored the dignity of a woman. And in Jesus, there is no difference between men and women, between races and gender. In the Second World War, during the Nazi occupation, during the Holocaust, I have one in my mouth. That's my timer. I usually have a cough drop preventively, but this time they did not prevent anything. But I'm using my cough drop as the timer for the sermon. When the cough drop is gone, then the sermon is over. I heard about a preacher who did the same in the past. And one day he used to put the mint in his mouth, and by the time the mint was melted, he knew that he had to finish the sermon. So that time, he went on and on and on. The mint didn't melt, and he didn't know how to finish the sermon. After he was done, his wife asked him what happened. And when he opened his mouth, he said, I put a button instead of a mint, so it didn't melt. So going back to our thoughts, we have to be thankful for the mother's touch that brings up to life everything that's good, and for the women's and wives that bring the best in their husbands' lives. The reality is that God's design will never be erased. Even in death, what a mother can do is definitely irreplaceable. It is told about this story during the Second World War and the Holocaust. It's about the Solomon Rosenberg family. It is a true story. Solomon Rosenberg and his wife and their two sons and his mother and father were arrested and placed in a Nazi concentration camp. It was a labor camp, and the rules were simple. As long as you can do your work, you are permitted to live. When you become too weak to do your work, then you are exterminated. Rosenberg watched his mother and father march off to their deaths. And he knew that the next would be his youngest son, David, because David had always been a frail child. Every evening, Rosenberg came back into the barracks after his hours of labor and searched for the faces of his family. When he found them, they would huddle together, embrace one another, and thank God for another day of life. One day, Rosenberg came back, and he didn't see those familiar faces. He finally discovered his oldest son, Joshua, in a corner, huddled, weeping and praying. He said, Josh, tell me it's not true. Joshua turned and said, it is true, Papa. Today, David was not strong enough to do his work, so they came for him. But where is your mother? Asked Mr. Rosenberg. Oh, Papa, he said, when they came for David, he was afraid and he cried. And Mama said, there is nothing to be afraid of, David. And she took his hand and went with him. This is motherhood. Mothers, this is your day. May God bless you in it. And I pray that if there is someone here who has never experienced the love of God that is so close to the love of a mother, that this will be your time of decision. Amen.